President, General Manager Dave Dombrowski. Fun time of year because it's a case where the players might have to get ready for a season, mentally and physically, but it's the time for the general manager to go to bat and do a lot of the work. How do you like the way your team is setting up at this particular juncture, as we're talking 6 weeks before the start of exhibition play and maybe 2.5 months before the start of the regular season?
Well, we like the way our club shapes up at this time. When you look at all the pieces that have been added to the club this past winter, we think we've been able to add to already a solid base. So we're excited to get going. If we're healthy, we think we're in a spot where we can compete with anybody really in the league, but that all takes care of itself on the field. But we feel good about what we've done so far.
Did you have to be more proactive this year in terms of what you needed to do to work on this team than maybe being reactive for some of the moves that were made? Because it looked as if the Tigers jumped in quickly to try to address the needs they needed to do.
Well, we did. I think part of that, first of all, we had a lot of players who were free agents this past winter going into the offseason. We knew we would have to make some moves in order to address what was taking place. And so that's why we knew we needed to be aggressive to fill some of those spots right off the bat. And then I think also in our situation, we looked at it and thought it might be a market that was robust. So if you could act pretty quickly, it might be helpful for us. So there was some strategy involved in that too. But I think for us, part of the thing was just having so many positions to fill. People even forget that Brandon Inge and Johnny Peralta were potential free agents a few months ago. It seems like they've been signed such a long time, but for us, we just had a lot of moves that we needed to make in order to put the club together.
How many of the moves were, hey, we have the right player already in place, and how many of it was, we need to bring somebody from the outside because what we have isn't as good as what might be in the market?
Well, I think for us, we are happy with the foundation that we had, and so in our situation, most of the additions filled holes for us to make us better at particular spots. We had, for example, a need for another left-handed bat, a bat in the middle of the line, switch hitter in Victor Martinez. That was something that we needed. We needed an eighth-inning setup guy when we moved Phil Koch to the starting rotation, so that was a Joaquin Benoit. We had holes at third base and shortstop when Inge and Peralta were potential free agents. So most of the moves that we made were to fill holes that we had because we feel very comfortable with a lot of the people that we have, that they'll do the job and perform for us.
Is this a different type of year in the sense that the expectations are higher now, the demands, so to say, to have a winning result on the field this year, the pressures are a little different in 2011 than they were in previous years?
I don't think so. I think over the last few years, starting with 2006 when we reached the World Series and unfortunately lost, every year since then we've been in a position where we've been competitive. One year we had a down year, but basically almost every year we've been in a pennant race at some point during the year or almost all season. So we're in a spot right now where our goal is year in and year out to try to win a division and advance to the World Series and win a World Championship. Last year maybe was a little bit different of a transition year for us going into the 2010 season because we needed to make some moves to sort of set our franchise up for the future. But at this point, we've really been in a position where year in and year out, basically we're trying to win, and this year's the same way.
And one final thing, as you prepare a team for a season, do you look strictly divisional? Do you say, all right, we need to take care of Minnesota, Chicago, KC, and Cleveland? Or do you say, well, you know, we have to keep an eye on division. We also have to keep an eye on what Boston, New York, Tampa is doing, what Anaheim and Seattle and Texas are doing. How do you approach that way? Is it just simply divisional, or do you take a look at the entire league?
Well, I think you can answer that in a couple different ways. First of all, you need to win your own division, so that's what you're trying to do, so you're focused on trying to do that. But you're also in a position where you always have your eye on the whole league, and really all baseball, just because you're interested in that. But the reality of the situation is you try to put the best club you can possibly on the field. And if you put the best club you possibly can on the field, you're in a position where you're trying to win not only your division, but win a world championship. If you can make it into the postseason, anything can happen. And I know in our scenario, if we can advance to that point, we have quality starting pitching, and anytime you have quality starting pitching, they can lead to winning a short series. But you can't worry about that at this particular time. You need to be focused on trying to win your division and win every game that you play, and hopefully get you into late October and maybe even early November.